You've thought about it. Don't lie. That one quiet moment when everything feels too heavy, you imagine an explosion, a blackout, a world-ending event that forces the system to collapse. No bills, no deadlines, no pressure. Just silence. But what if I told you that this fantasy of destruction isn't madness? It's your mind crying out for help, and you're not alone. We live in a world that's always on wake-up. Grind, scroll, performance, repeat. But beneath the surface, millions of people are carrying the same unspoken thought. I wish it would all just stop. Not because we're evil, not because we want people to suffer, but because we feel trapped in a machine that demands everything and gives nothing. You might daydream about being the last person on Earth, or surviving a zombie apocalypse, or watching the world collapse from your bedroom window. These thoughts are not just fantasies, they're psychological defense mechanisms. They're your mind screaming, I need a reset, I need freedom, I can't breathe in this world anymore. And the craziest part? Science actually supports this. There's a name for this hidden urge: apocalyptic escapism. It's a coping mechanism. When life becomes unbearable, the brain creates a fantasy scenario where the external world is destroyed. Not you, because deep down, you don't want to die. You want the world that's suffocating you to die. Psychologists have found that these thoughts often appear in people dealing with chronic stress, burnout, depression, identity crisis, social overwhelm. Think about it. Every movie that goes viral, from The Walking Dead to The Purge to Don't Look Up, taps into this exact desire, not to suffer, but to start over. In a twisted way, the end of the world feels like peace, and in that peace, you finally feel like you can breathe. But what if I told you this is deeper than escapism? Let's break this down psychologically. In times of extreme stress, the brain engages in a fantasy loop. It begins imagining impossible scenarios. Not because it's irrational, but because it's searching for relief in a world that offers none. These destruction dreams are a form of subconscious self-defense. Carl Jung called this the shadow response. Your shadow, the repressed unconscious part of you, knows you're in danger, not physical danger, but spiritual exhaustion. You're trapped in a meaningless job, an artificial social life, a comparison-driven reality, a system that thrives on your emptiness. So the mind begins imagining obliteration, not because it wants death, but because it wants life without chains. The apocalypse is not about ending everything. It's about reclaiming control. Let's go even deeper. Why do so many people love stories of collapse? Because in collapse, there are no rules. There's no pressure to succeed. No one's watching, no likes, no performance. You're just free. Survival becomes the only goal. And ironically, that feels more human than our daily routines. You trade hustle culture for instinct. You swap productivity for presence. You abandon performance for authenticity. You finally get to be instead of do. These fantasies are not about destruction. They're about returning to something real. That's why people aren't obsessed with the apocalypse. They're obsessed with freedom disguised as destruction. But here's the dark truth. If left unaddressed, this fantasy can become dangerous. Because when the pain goes ignored, when the world keeps demanding more from you while giving less, you stop fantasizing about the world ending and start wishing you would disappear instead. That's how burnout becomes depression. That's how stress becomes numbness. That's how a daydream turns into self-destruction. When your only hope is collapse, you stop believing in healing. And that's when the system wins. Because it doesn't want you to heal. It wants you tired, obedient, silent, but you don't have to stay there. The truth is, you don't need the world to end. You need a reset inside you. And that reset starts with 3 radical shifts. 1. Embrace the shadow. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your apocalyptic thoughts are not crazy. They're a message from your shadow. So listen, write them down, explore the pain, ask what it's trying to protect you from. Don't judge your darkness. Use it. 2. Disconnect from the machine. The pressure you feel, it's not natural. It's designed, built into a system that profits off your stress. So unplug, even for a few hours. Step away from news cycles, social media, endless work. Spend time in silence, in nature, in solitude. The real end of the world you crave isn't fire and brimstone. It's peace.
3. Create your own apocalypse. But not destruction. Reconstruction. Burn away what's fake. End what no longer serves you. Delete apps. Quit the job. Leave the fake friends. Let go of the identity that was never yours. You don't have to wait for collapse. You can become the collapse. Collapse the old you, so something real can rise. You don't secretly want the world to end. You just want your pain to end. You want silence in a world that never shuts up. You want rest in a world that rewards burnout. You want meaning in a world that worships noise. That's not weakness. That's not insanity. That's a sign you're still human. So next time you catch yourself imagining the end, don't be afraid. That fantasy might just be your soul's way of saying, wake up. There's a different way to live. You don't have to destroy the world to find peace. You just have to destroy the lie you've been living in. Your apocalypse doesn't start outside you. It starts within. And that's where your new world begins.